Hola, animigos, and welcome to Keyframers. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw.
And I'm your host, David Khourshid.
Today, we are joined by a new coding compadre, animation amigo, and Boolean buddy, Cassie Evans. Hello,
Yeah,
Cassie.
I'm really excited because Cassie is an amazing animator, writer, and a speaker, and she's actually recently joined Team GreenSock working on GSAP. So this is our second GreenSock special guest on the show. But yeah, you can find her writings on CSS tricks, code drops, and also her wonderfully designed blog, Cassie.codes. That's an awesome domain name.
Yes.
Yeah, and she also does workshops on SVG animation with Smashing Magazine, and I'm sure other awesome things as well.
Those seem to have been a smashing success. They've gone really well. Some really good output coming from those. You can find her on Twitter at Cassie Codes, and learn more about all of her projects at Cassie.codes. Both fantastic domain names and Twitter handles. And your website's just amazing. So many nice little touches, the little logo animation there. And I'm so jealous of the little avatar animation at the bottom. I've been wanting to do something like that for years. I just haven't ever made the time. Yes.
That's such a big thing. So many people, when I put together that site, were like, "Oh, I've been wanting to do my own portfolio for ages, but I just can't find the time." And I was like, "Yeah, I was furloughed. I was furloughed for a few months. So all I did was just tinker around and play and make my portfolio. So I think I got lucky."
So
Yeah,
so
that's
good.
awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. How are you feeling today?
I am feeling good. I'm really excited for this. I think this is going to be loads of fun.
Yeah. You sent over a really cool animation. We talked a little bit beforehand about wanting to do kind of a scroll animation, and you sent over this one by Tubic. We've done quite a few animations by Tubic. Really great animation concepts coming from there. Yeah, a lot of interesting things going on in this clothes brand website design. We've got the link in our stuff there. But yeah, let's see. So kind of the most interesting aspect, I guess, is this like scroll path that's happening.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
I think that was the thing that drew me to it, because I obviously, if you've looked at any of my things, have a bit of a thing for SVG. Like, that's my one true love. So whenever I see opportunities to kind of add a little bit of SVG fun into a website, I always kind of jump at it. And I recently did a website with like a path in the background, and it was really nice. It's like a really good way to lead like a user through the page without necessarily animating loads of text or things which can be confusing. You can just kind of have subtle background graphics animating, and I think that that's often a lot more effective than going kind of all in with everything animating. Although that's fun too.
Yeah. There's definitely balance that happens.
Yeah.
There. But yeah, so we've done a little bit of coding ahead of time, just to get a lot of this basic layout and image picking and all that kind of stuff out of the way, so we can focus a little more on the kind of scroll aspect of it. So you can see here we've pretty faithfully recreated the design. We've got our nice title at the top. We've got a big banner image, and then kind of these grids of photos that kind of alternate back and forth. And then Cassie put together this awesome path for the background. What did you actually make that path in?
I really like Affinity Designer. I was like a long time Illustrator fan, just because it was what I used for ages. And then when I was putting together my SVG workshop, I realized that it's potentially not the most accessible program to recommend to people because they've got the Adobe Mafia pricing. So I had a little look at different SVG graphics editors, and I tried out all of them, and that was the one that I actually kind of fell in love with. And I now use it for everything. And I really love the pencil tool. There's like a pencil tool, and you can just draw lines, and it automatically exports them as strokes. Whereas with Illustrator, I think you have to make sure you've got exactly the right brush selected. Otherwise, you get variable width strokes, and then they get exported out as like shapes with a fill.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that would be problematic for this animation.
Yeah.
Not be as easy.
Right.
Yeah, I've loved Affinity Designer. I've been using that for a while. It's very affordable. If you're just trying to get into SVG or anything like that, do check out Affinity and their products. They have essentially one for every kind of Adobe program. Photos, like their Photoshop equivalent. Designer is their Illustrator equivalent, and Publisher is their what's the name of the InDesign? Yeah, their InDesign equivalent. But it's super affordable, and the SVG output is quite good. You'll still usually want to run through like SVG-O or something like that to kind of trim things down, but it feels a lot better to use than Illustrator, especially for the price.
Yeah. I found like a lot of people that used it in my workshops just picked up the pen tool quite intuitively, whereas with Illustrator, it really feels like you kind of have to learn the commands and you have to kind of teach yourself how to do it, whereas Affinity feels easier to pick up, I think.
Yeah.
I am an Illustrator person myself, but definitely play around with it. I know I just can't, knock Illustrator. I know there's so many alternatives nowadays, but that's why I started with like over 10 years ago, and I'm just so used to it.
Yeah, it's hard to give up a tool that you're kind of fast in. So what do we do first?
Well, so yeah, that's interesting. Where would y'all like to start? Cassie, you can certainly take the lead there if you have anything in mind.
I think maybe we could tackle like the dashed stroke bit of it.
Okay.
It's like a nice place to start in the SVG bits itself.
Right. So we've got this stroke SVG element down here. This path is what's winding its way down. And so the way you set this up, Cassie, you've got that stroke as position absolute within our page container. So it's just taking up the full width and height there. And you've got a preserve aspect ratio on there. I think that's just the default. Is that right, or did you customize
Default
that?
is meet.
Okay.
So preserve aspect ratio, in case anyone doesn't know, it's quite a tricky one to wrap your head around.
Yes.
It's kind of, I like relating it to background size in CSS. So the X mid and Y mid values, you can say X min or X max or X mid, and that positions the part of the SVG with the gubbins on in the view box. So either kind of to the top or bottom of the Y axis or left or right of the X axis. And then the word value, like the second value, is either meet or slice. And meet will size it up until it meets the container. So it's kind of like background size contain, whereas slice will size up and then any excess is sliced off, like background size cover.
Nice.
And you can also say none, and then your SVG becomes not scalable in the way that you would want it to be.
It gets very squishy, right?
It gets very squishy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit more like just adding none as preserve aspect ratio is a bit more like a regular image in CSS when you set like a width and a height of something that's completely not its aspect ratio, and it kind of smushes and changes shape to fit that, which sometimes is what you want. For something like this, I could actually see that working, since we're trying to get it to like fit the kind of vertical setup of this, but it would certainly make the path a little less loopy. Hey, thank you so much, Christopher. She just donated $10. That's very nice of you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Christopher.
So I was showing the spec for preserve aspect ratio using an app called Dash. That's a fun little app for referencing documentation. I've got SVG spec in there, CSS spec, and MDN docs and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very helpful. So are you wanting to just go ahead and make it a dashed line, or are we going to start animating it? All right.
Yeah, let's make it a dashed line, because that's a nice place to start. So if we want to make it a dashed line, I've got the world's clickiest keyboard. Sorry, it's just
that's loud. Is that a mechanical keyboard?
It's real loud. Yeah, it's a mechanical keyboard that looks a bit like a typewriter.
Oh, nice.
And I realized it's like right next to my mic. Apologies.
That's all right. That's all right.
So we have the stroke dash array attribute, and I don't actually know what the numbers are inside it. Do you know whether they're units or percentages?
They're actually units, I believe. Units. But there is a way to get them as like essentially percentages. So yeah, dash array, a list of comma, inner white space separated length in percentages. So I guess you can do both. But I think browser support for the percentage one might be tricky. But yeah, typically you'll just use like a unitless kind of value. Hey,
cool. There. Yeah, you can use percentages. That's cool. Yeah, I think that along with like the path length attribute is probably a lot more common now. We've used path length several times before, and if you set that to just like path length 1. You can get a nice, easy to use value.
Yeah.
Okay.
That path length is a wild trick. I don't know if Shaw pioneered it or if it was from somewhere else, but just setting it to 1 makes things so much easier.
Yeah,
it really does.
When you're doing the line drawing kind of technique, which we'll be doing kind of part of that here.
Sort of, yeah.
But yeah, we'll get to that in a bit.
Although I did find during one of my SVG workshops, because I talked to people about that, and then we did animating strokes with CSS and then animating strokes with GreenSock. And if you have path length set to 1 on a path that you try to animate with GreenSock, it does not like it. So it's a clever trick, but you need to keep it in CSS world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the good thing about GSAP is it's going to calculate that path length automatically for you. So whereas if you're doing that in CSS, you kind of need to like use JavaScript to get the path length, and then either use that as a CSS var or something like that to actually set that in CSS.
Yeah, and then you end up with loads of weird magic numbers in your code if the path length is like 3,265.739 something.
So many decimal places.
Many decimal places. Gets really confusing.
Yeah, I do appreciate GSAP doing the hard work for us there.
Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate GSAP doing maths for me, because that was never my strong point at all.
Well, should we get into GSAP here?
Yeah, we can do. So I guess the best way is to just like start animating a path. So let's actually take off the stroke dash array now. We know how to do that. We're going to take it off, and we're just going to start with like a normal path, and then we can animate that.
Yes. So I've got GSAP imported from Skypack down here at the bottom. We're not using any of the extended GSAP paid plugins for this, right? We're going to use Draw SVG. Draw SVG.
For it.
Okay.
So that's one of the paid plugins.
All right.
Part of Club GreenSock, but we're also going to use ScrollTrigger, which is a plugin, but it's for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the budget for it. You just got donations.
Everyone has the budget for ScrollTrigger. It's free.
Oh, okay. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll reference those plugins.
And also everyone can use all the plugins on CodePen anyway, right. Even if they are part of Club GreenSock. Everyone's in Club GreenSock on CodePen.
That's awesome.
So let's see, what's the ScrollTrigger plugin?
Yeah, ScrollTrigger with a capital T.
Okay. All right. So I've got GSAP and Draw SVG and ScrollTrigger in there. If you're just using the main library, you can import SkyPack like that. Otherwise, here is a helpful GSAP starter template. Chat for you.
So what's the reason that you're importing using SkyPack and CodePen instead of the little CodePen menu where you can add JavaScript libraries? Is it just to get the invisibility of it?
Yeah. I like using imports in that way because it's a lot more like visible what you're using and all that. But since we are needing the extra plugins and stuff like that, we can just import it. So I've got it in the add external scripts and
okay, cool.
Setting now. So GSAP should be available. We'll do const.tl new timeline. I'm very unfamiliar with the GSAP 3 syntax. Is it
we don't
GSAP?
Even need a timeline right now. We can just do a little tween.
All right.
So if you say gsap.from, then we can change things to a timeline a little bit later. Yeah, so is it stroke? That's the SVG, so we want the path itself.
Just stroke.
So that's
right.
Just stroke. Yeah, and then we've imported draw SVG. So you say draw SVG. SVG is all capital. And then 0%. Yeah, that's great. I'm just going to do it real quick because the default is 0.5 seconds for duration. So maybe put the duration to like
2 seconds.
10 seconds?
10 seconds.
Oh, without the S, and it's just a number.
Okay.
Yeah, just 10 maybe. Yeah.
There you go. Nice.
Awesome. So you've probably done stroke animations in CSS before on keyframers. I imagine you've done loads of them.
Yeah, we've done a few. Yeah. The 2020 one was a great one. Fun. But yeah, with GSAP, it's handling all those path calculations, and the Draw SVG plugin just takes that away.
Yeah, and you can kind of do like slightly slightly more complex path animations because you can specify like from start and end values. I have to actually go into the docs to find exactly what the syntax is. I don't have it all in my head.
Yeah.
So yeah, for instance, you could say let's do a from to tween. So a from tween in GreenSock is basically saying animate from these values to the values that are already specified in the code. If you do a from to, it's saying animate from these values we're giving you to another set of values. So
I changed it to just 10% using from to, so 0% to 10%. And that's a very slow duration, but you can see how that's stopping much sooner than the end there.
Yeah, and you can also pass in. At the moment, we're just saying like we're giving one number value, percentage value. You can pass in two numbers, so you could say for the start, say 0%, 10%.
Oh, right, to give it an actual. Gap.
And then you could do 90, 100% for the next one. So that should draw a tiny bit of the path.
Ah, yes.
So the path starts, the bit that you can see starts from 0 to 10% of the length through the path, and then it animates that part of the path along towards the end. So all of this stuff I have tried to do with CSS before, and you can get there with like very clever use of dash offset and stroke dash array values and kind of tweaking things around, but it just makes it so easy and so intuitive with Draw SVG.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. I like that.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It really makes me want to do animations of like a little worm every time I see this. I'm like, oh, it's just perfect. Just do a cute little worm.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got the basic idea of the stroke animation. So if we go back and look, I mean, it looks like it's just filling in the entire line. So that's good. That makes it even simpler. We can just leave off that, and then.
And if we just do from 0, then it will draw out to 100% automatically, because that's what it is in the code.
Yeah.
Oh, duration. Oh. Did we say 10?
Yeah, about 10 is probably good for the length of it.
Oh.
All right.
But you see, what this is doing is it's like offsetting the path. And it's the like stroke, the dash of a stroke of the path. So if we were to go into the path again and we were to say stroke dash array, I think that's how you spell it.
It always bugs me that it's not dash array, dash like kebab separated there.
So you can see that it's just kind of ignoring that. It's either ignoring it because I've spelt it wrong, or it's ignoring it because of GreenSock. Let's have a look. I'm going to uncomment that.
No, it appears for a second with the proper dashing.
Oh, no.
So how would you handle the dash with GSAP?
So because we want to draw in the stroke, I think that the best way to do it is to have a dashed path and then have a mask and animate the same stroke within that mask, and then the mask will reveal the dashed stroke underneath. So we've got a kind of combo of stroke animation and masking, which is pretty cool.
Yes. So I've wrapped our stroke in a def element. This basically is just an indicator that this SVG shouldn't be directly rendered, and so this gives us our stroke there. And then if we want to actually render it, we go use xlink href equals stroke, and that should give us the same effect there. Yep.
Cool.
All right. And if we wanted to do a mask, I always forget all the syntax, but I know there's mask, and
I always get confused with clip path, because the clip path, how you reference it and how you write it, there's like camel case and kebab case, and I always forget which one's which.
Yeah. So right. So we would probably want to use a clip path here, not mask, right?
Oh no, we want to use a mask because we want to do alpha values.
Okay.
I think.
All right. So we'll do mask. Let's mask. All right. That's great. And we'll do the same kind of thing here, where we'll use the use element to duplicate that SVG path. Got that there. So stroke mask and stroke. Let's give this an ID of the dashed stroke, right? And then we'll move our stroke dash array down here. Give this an ID of
mask stroke. Mask
Yes.
stroke, because it's
stroke.
not mask,
Yeah,
it's the
there
mask.
we go.
Yeah.
And then down here we'll say mask
equals URL.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, stroke.
And then ID.
Yeah. All right. So in theory, now we can say mask stroke here in GSAP. And we'll... Hey, something's happening.
It's not refreshing for me, I can't see.
So I activated the run button. You might need to refresh or just click the run button. When we're animating with JavaScript, it's kind of nice to the pin settings behavior, turn off auto updating preview so that you can just trigger it when you want.
So that doesn't look like it's hearing.
Let's see.
I think the good thing is that because we've got the stroke color, set that as like gray.
Oh,
so
right.
we can see that it is being masked. That's really good.
Let's say, because in the mask, we actually want the stroke color to be black, right?
Yeah.
That should help us get it rendered fully. Let me do a slower duration there, because that's...
No, wait, we want it to be white. Yeah, because we want it to be seen as the stroke draws out.
Let's see. So our effect is not working, so...
It's probably because we're trying to get clever with using U's. We could try and not be clever and just use the paths.
Yeah.
And then we could extrapolate it out to U's and see if that works.
Oh, and I'm doing stroke color. That should just be stroke.
Oh, instead of stroke.
Really quick.
By the way, fun question in the chat. Monday asks, for SVG animations and animations in general, is animate.js a good alternative to GreenSock or GSAP? And I basically said, try them out, both, see what works for you.
Not for SVG. For animations in general, totally try them out and see what works for you. Anime doesn't do anything to make sure that SVG transforms get handled consistently cross-browser. GreenSock does loads of stuff, which is why I use it, because SVG transforms are super complicated and stuff gets handled differently all over the place. And GreenSock also gives you the option of, when you're setting centers of rotation, you can choose to rotate around a certain point on the SVG canvas or a certain point on the element itself. And no other animation libraries give you that. So go ahead and try, but you'll definitely run into issues down the road if you're using SVG.
Yeah, from what I've seen, anime is good for creating elements and animating those. Anime has some built-in methods for that kind of stuff, making a splash kind of effect with SVG, like confetti or something like that. Whereas with GSAP, it's more about manipulating an existing DOM setup.
Or numbers in general, really.
Right.
Because, yeah, GSAP's good with Canvas and WebGL stuff and all that as well.
Let's say stroke.
Yeah. No, I think I saw this somewhere, bit of a side topic, but I think there was a way recently added to browsers, or at least within the last year or two, where you could actually have elements transform relative to themselves rather than the SVG document. Now, obviously,
Transform box, fill box, and transform box, view box. Yeah,
that's it. You just saved me awesome. You just saved me 2 hours of Googling.
It's really cool. And that does mean on projects, I've worked on projects before where for whatever reason the client doesn't want to use much JavaScript or any JavaScript libraries, it's very stripped back. And I've used feature queries and transform box, fill box for SVG animations. So that means you don't get SVG animations in all the browsers. You only get them in the browsers that support fill box. And hopefully they animate consistently cross-browser. The issue is that as it's getting rolled out in browsers, there's always going to be like inconsistencies when it's being rolled out. So there have been a few times where I've had things kind of spinning around here instead of spinning around here. But I think it's like the best way to do SVG animations with CSS at the moment.
That's awesome. Literally the second link I saw when I Googled it was your example, transform box, fill box. Really, really awesome example.
Out.
Yeah. And yeah, that works great. Yeah.
Yeah,
obviously,
it's pretty cool.
GreenSock is going to tackle a lot more edge cases than just the transform origin, but it is really nice to know that you could, at the very least, have that as a backup.
Yeah, I think like if you're happy to only have your SVG animations being like little progressive enhancements, using fill box is really good.
It's my secret. I'm never happy. And
you can target.
Me neither. I'm gonna have it everywhere.
And you should be able to target that with @supports.
Oh yeah, that's
only
true.
Have that happen in supporting browsers. All right. So it looks like the mask stroke setup is working now.
Is it working?
Yeah. You might have to click that run button in the.
Oh
in the
yeah. I'm just staring at the same screen.
Yeah.
Hey, we were trying to be too clever.
Well, I think we were probably just missing some specific attribute or having too many attributes on the use reference itself, or the definition. I
don't tend to use a lot personally,
There's a lot of uses going on here.
I like to use it.
I think it can be really cool in some cases, but someone raised like a thing about the fact that it can be less performant than using just kind of standard SVG DOM elements, because the browser has to like calculate and think a little bit more. And also like sometimes for animation it can be a bit of a pain because you have to work with the shadow DOM, which sounds really cool but it's not cool.
no it is not.
It's like the coolest sounding thing that is terrible.
Sounds nightmare inducing, and it probably is.
Well, so let's get into scroll a little bit here. So we have a mask stroke animation. How would we tie this to like as they're scrolling through the page element, say?
So we have I'll do some typing here. We've included ScrollTrigger, right?
Yes.
So we're going to say
our dependencies.
ScrollTrigger. We're adding a ScrollTrigger to this tween. And now one of the coolest things about ScrollTrigger is that it's actually really performant because it doesn't matter how many scroll triggers you add. Obviously, if you're animating everything and adding scroll triggers to everything, you're going to have a performance problem. But all of the positions are calculated from the get-go. So the start and end positions of all the animations are calculated and then they're compared to the scroll position. So we're not kind of doing this on the fly as you're scrolling. It's pre-calculated, which is really nice. Yes. So for ScrollTrigger, you say, let's say what our trigger element is. So what's our main element? We've got like, is it page,
is our container there.
Sweet. So let's say page. Got ID. Okay. So under the hood, GreenSock uses query selector as well. So you can use any CSS selector you want, which is cool because if you want to make things complex and choose all the images that are inside a certain section that's also a sibling of another section, you can do that.
And it caches those a little bit, right?
I think so, maybe. We can say. Let's do a really simple one from the start. We'll just say start from the top. This says when the top of the trigger hits the top of the viewport. And then we can say end when the bottom of the trigger hits the bottom of the viewport. And then that's a typo. But we can take that out and just do shorthand. But just so you've got an idea of what that value actually is. And what we can also do is we can say mark as true for debugging, which is really nice because you can kind of see what's going on. So if we run this now.
Hey, look at that. Yeah, so as I scroll down, the line is kind of drawing. Now, if I go backwards, does it trigger in the same way?
It does not, and you'll notice that that is triggering just by duration there. So it's triggering at the start, but the duration is the time that we've set. And now what we can do, instead of having duration be the time, you can set scrub true. And then that does cool scrubbing with the scroll as you scroll down.
Yeah, that's a bit more what we...
Yeah.
So because of all the looping, it kind of goes out of viewport a little bit at the start.
You might need to adjust the start and end values a little bit.
Right.
So what we can do,
or the easing, right? The easing might be.
So there's no easing. This is tricky
because it's scrubbing, right?
Now it's attached to the scroll, so it's your like user input is technically the ease. You can't really add an ease to a scroll trigger. But what we can do, I think in the demo though, it started like some way down the path. So we could say start when %25 higher than the element hits the top of the viewport. So it's already gone like a quarter of the way, maybe, if we do that.
Adjusting it a little bit here, just based on my viewport.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
So that's already
and then the bottom, I think we're missing a little bit here. So we might need the same kind of adjustment for the bottom.
You can do relative values as well. So I think I always forget whether it's equals, plus equals, plus equals, and then you can add like a number of pixels or a % onto the bottom. So we could say like 200 pixels, maybe. I think you say pixels. Or %. Maybe we can do a %. That's more like %.
Yeah, that looks like it. Got it.
Give that a go. And that will move the marker further down. So I think we can see if you scroll down now, yeah, the marker's kind of added further down the page. So it adds a bit of padding.
Yeah, I'm adjusting the top value because it seems to be like going a bit too quick. Play in with those values to try and get it to match up with the...
But I think this is the cool bit about ScrollTrigger is like I've used Intersection Observer quite a lot for doing like scroll triggered animations, but it's not as easy to like quickly kind of change things and tweak values, and you can't kind of sync things to scroll unless you're kind of quite clever with JavaScript. So yeah, it's just quite nice and intuitive, I think.
Yes.
Oh, you know what's also fun is, so we've got scrub true, and that's like, it's nice. It does what it says on the box, like it's syncing it up to the scroll, but it just feels a little bit too closely synced, like it's a bit gamified. It feels like kind of jerky. What you can do is you can say wait for a few seconds to catch up to the scroll bar. So if we say scrub 2, it will wait 2 seconds to catch up to the scroll bar, and then if you scroll down, when you stop scrolling, it kind of catches up for a couple of seconds, which feels a bit like easing, which is really nice.
It's nice. Is it like a lerp effect?
Yeah, it's like a little lerp
interpretation.
And
according to Offer in the chat, the default value for scrub is don't want none.
Yeah, default value is don't want none. Exactly. So I think it's just 0.
Yeah. Awesome. And Adam in the chat is asking about responsiveness with ScrollTrigger, I assume.
Yeah, so you can do, I don't know the syntax for it off the top of my head, but you can do match media with scroll triggers. Let me have a little look in the docs. So you can pass in different scroll timelines, different values for different media queries.
That's great.
It's pretty new, ScrollTrigger, so
yeah,
I'm still kind of like getting my head around it, but I've used it on a few client projects now, and it's like every time I use it, I'm just like, oh, this is so easy.
yeah. I love the setup of it. I haven't gotten too into the syntax yet, so I'm playing around with it here. So yeah, that's looking really good. We've got like 75% of the animation right there. And David, I noticed, I think you did that with the title at the top.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of interesting things going on there, but that's CSS only.
Right. So
I want to know what's going on.
So the title at the top, the way Cassie and keyframers slide in, looks like the Y is getting cut off a little bit, but that's okay.
I was wondering how you were gonna do that, because I usually, if I'm doing something like that, I lean into like SVG masks and I just like put the text in the SVG because that's what I'm used to. But are you using like?
So we have a little trick. It's using, and you could use a pseudo in an element, but we're using two elements in this case. If you just consider like a revealer, like parent element, and a revealer inner which holds the actual text, and you put overflow hidden on the parent, then you could just translate Y and have that slide in and out, which is also why the Y is getting cut off there on keyframers. Yeah. So it looks like kev framers. We have to hire someone named Kevin or something to really complete that. But yeah. It's
tricky. Well, yeah, I think
you add a little padding on the bottom, and then I guess it would show further down.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on here a little bit, but trying to add the padding without like creating the space in between the elements, so doing a negative margin there, but the right magic numbers for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and now I'm also using intersection observer, which has been a huge pain and still is. We did an episode on it. Yeah, I still don't have it completely right.
Are you trying to? What are you trying to trigger?
So I'm trying to trigger an animation when the revealer elements are in view, and that's all working splendidly, except for whatever reason, some of the elements are not being observed. Like you could see some of the captions are animating just like they're supposed to, but the ones next to them are not, which is really weird. I don't like this API.
But well,
does intersection observer have markers tree that you can add? Because that's really useful.
Well, I'm thinking this is where GSAP and ScrollTrigger would definitely be helpful.
Please show me the alternative, because I want to throw intersection observer in the trash.
I just want to do. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Let's.
All right, so the way David was triggering the animation, so with observer, each element when it's technically intersecting or in the viewport, adding a visible data visible class to it. So we could do the same approach, or we could animate it completely within GSAP and ScrollTrigger.
Yeah,
I have my. Sorry.
I was saying, I think that's out.
So revealer inner is really what we're wanting to animate. So we can do from, and we'll do Y 120% rather than the CSS keyframes there. So GSAP from, and then we would do the same kind of scroll trigger setup, but we're not doing it with page. We just want the trigger to be the element itself. So if we leave an element off, is that the right approach with scroll trigger?
So, wait, let me see. Sorry, I was trying to work out how to do this, the stroke animation with like the dashes moving as well.
Yeah.
But we can add that at the end. Let's see.
Oh, and we don't want scrub.
Are these? What are we doing? Are these reveal inner?
So that's the kind of cut off text wrappers there. David added. So we would just do start. We would probably do more like start center for those, right? And center. I don't know the right syntax there.
So the Y value is wrong. You can do, you're just passing a number. So you can also do Y% with GreenSock. So
that's right.
This, and then you could say 120.
Yeah. Jack Doyle is saying do a for each to create a scroll trigger for each, which makes sense, I think.
So like document, query, selector, all, and then we'll do this, and we can do array.
Oh, you can do that.
What if there's a better approach? Please interject. Going with what I know.
So I would probably do. So are these the images, or is this the text that we're doing at the moment?
The text, is that right, David? You wrapped the text in these revealers?
I did, yeah. Not the images, but we could do that. Yeah, we could totally do that. Should we? Let's do it.
Free and in a. Just because if you're, all my copy paste is so broken on this keyboard. No.
Actually, why not? So for each of the figures, I'm going to just add that revealer class. And it is a harmless class. It's not going to add any special styling or anything. Yeah. So.
I might type on my less wacky laptop over here. Or each. Do each. I'm trying to do like tweens and GSAP together and JavaScript.
I'm just scrolling back and forth between this. This is such a cool effect.
Let's go for each. Wait, are we both working on the same line here?
We might have been. Hopefully it's up now.
Yeah, that works.
So one thing that I wish GSAP had, now that we're migrating to animating revealer inner within JavaScript, just having, and I guess you could do this with variables too, but just having those CSS variables in the CSS and, you know, able to reference them, etc. That's pretty nice. Yeah.
You can animate CSS variables.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can. You totally can. Michelle Barker's done a really good article recently on that. What's going on here?
What have you done, David?
What have I done?
I did nothing except add classes that I said were harmless. I might be very wrong there.
Yeah, it's definitely
all broken.
Definitely throwing
all right, hold on. Doing a little damage control. So, all right, maybe I'll take the revealer classes off the figures then.
Yeah. I think we have to wrap the image itself in that.
Makes sense. Well, then I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so they're off the figure, and I'm going to put them around the images themselves instead, except I don't think that that's the broken part. I think the revealer inner is... because they're being transformed. Okay, taking them off the images too.
Well, so yeah, I think what we have there is the revealer inner has the animation on it, so we'll take that out for now. And yeah, I think that got it, but we're missing our trigger. Oh, go.
I took out the stroke animation just so that I could see where the markers are for the revealer inner bits.
Right. So for do we need to add the trigger as the L? The element.
I think by default it is already that.
Okay. No, it does need to be.
Oh, here we go. So.
Oh, but start. Yeah. What would be the right start value there? Because we don't necessarily want it triggering when that element is Okay, there we go.
Okay,
that's better. Yeah. There we go.
So that should be when the center of the element hits. Yeah.
Yeah.
The center of the
viewport. There we go.
Oh, that's so nice.
It is very good.
And then you can do toggle actions as well. So I always have to look at toggle actions stuff. So toggle actions controls like how the animation plays, like when you scroll back up and scroll back in. So let's have a little look. Toggle.
I think what we can do here is do div. Self inner.
I feel like that's what caused the
well, you were adding it to the figure itself rather than wrapper inside of it. Let's see if that does it. I've got it added to 1 images, so we'll see first image here properly. But something changed there. Oh, the toggle action. It's not working, but I don't know. Image display block. So that would. Yeah, Ben in the chat. Can you fix the Y not completely showing by giving it a bigger line height? That should help.
Oh, I suppose we can. Yeah. I don't know. I sort of like keyframers.
Seems to be triggering maybe the toggle actions.
Yeah, I think. Hey, there we go. That's cool.
There we go. The image.
That is nice.
And you can change the toggle actions depending on what you need. Like this is currently saying that it will play the animation when entering, and then pause it when leaving down the bottom, I think, and resume it when I'm entering again backwards, and then no action when you scroll all the way past the beginning. Toggle actions really confuses me, but it does make sense. And it's one of those things that, like, you know, if you haven't looked at it for a while, it completely breaks your brain. But after you've been looking at it for like a whole project, by the end of the project, you're like, oh yeah, I totally understand this now.
Do you know why the image is not? So the animation does work. Like when you scroll past it, I just have a wrapper on the very first one in the grid, that revealer class.
So what first image.
The first image in the grid there. If you scroll past it, you can briefly see it like animating in. I'm just not sure why it's triggering so
I'll run it
low.
again. Oh yeah, I see. Okay. So we could do, I would do a separate one for the images. So this is like text, right? Where have you done the image one?
The first two in the grid should have that. Just the
same. Did you add the revealer inner?
Right, the same revealer and revealer inner classes.
Let's do a separate one for the images, maybe.
Okay. Revealer image. We'll set that up as a separate one. Got the text for revealer inner.
I'm copy pasting. I wonder whether images will need like different start and end values.
Possibly. Do something like opacity 0 and y% 20, so it's a little
different. Oh, I think on the site they were kind of scaling as well, slightly, and they're inside bigger elements, so we could scale the images.
Is it just
that would be really nice.
Okay. In theory. But we need images.
I'll take the markers off the other ones as well so you can see what's going on. So we've got a lot of markers right now.
So we probably want it
marker-tastic.
more like center top. Trigger a little sooner for the...
Yeah, we could even you can do percentages
center
down as well. So maybe even top is like 70% of the way down from the top of the viewport.
Yeah, that looks like it's working well.
Can scroll triggers have delays? Random question.
So the delays, like time in scroll trigger land, is based around position. So you can set like the end or the start like further up or further down the page, and then that will create delays or kind of change how long an animation plays for that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Because so the secondary title where it says keyframers, I want that to have a little bit of a, not a stagger, but just a delay. So it shows Cassie Evans and then keyframers under that.
Yeah.
But delay doesn't work.
Because of the way we're looping through them like that, I don't... Okay, so you're doing...
Yeah. But yes, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm not sure how... Yeah, I'm not sure how you would do that. That's a puzzler.
I'm gonna have to ask someone on the GSAP team.
Yeah.
Wonder who.
I'll definitely go away and figure that one out.
Yeah, well, we can post in the GSAP forums and get
that's where I hang out
there.
Now. Yeah, I'm sure that's been asked before. Maybe. I don't know.
Right, so
I pop into the forums from time to time. It's just a wealth of information.
I really love the forums. They make me so happy. Like the vibe there is just so nice. It's like Stack Overflow, but the people aren't horrible to you.
Mm-hmm.
I answered a question for someone the other day and they were like, "You're my hero, I'll never forget you." It's just like, oh, that's so nice.
Were they trying to save the world with animations, or?
Yeah, I'll never forget you.
So one thing that was pointed out in the chat, the things kind of disappear at first, or like you see the non-animated version like appearing, and then it pops in. So one thing I've always done,
content.
right? One thing I've done, well, it's like the flash of the unanimated content, since we're using like from, and animating it to a different state. You see the original state, and then GSAP loads and kicks in, and then you get like the correct state. So one thing that I used to do in that case, on the body, adding a just CSS animation, like a fade in animation. If JavaScript doesn't load, doesn't matter. The body's still going to fade in, but it gives you enough time for like GSAP to render and load and get in that correct state, so that you can have everything ready there. And you could set like a class in GSAP, so when GSAP loads, like it instantly makes the body visible rather than animating. But this is just a simple, quick approach for that there.
Yeah, I usually do that too.
Hey, that's nice. We've got a pretty
really nice,
pretty good setup happening here. I'm gonna try taking off that, and then I'll add a revealer to the banner as well. I believe the original animation. That banner. No, the banner's there. That's okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. So we're pretty much there with it.
I want to do a little extra animation of the dashes along that line.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah,
yes.
Did you for sure?
Did you figure out that aspect of it?
Yeah, I think so.
And David in the chat, Jack is saying to keep the delay, try restart as the first part of toggle actions. So if we say restart here, and then
is that Jack as in Jack from GreenSock?
As in Jack Doyle.
Hey,
the one and only.
hi.
The Jack Doyle.
Class list contains what's the targeting class you were doing?
Oh man, I had it copy pasted. Page dash title dash secondary.
Page title secondary. Let's see if that does anything. No.
Nope.
Let's see. Page titles. Okay. That right. Let's just take off the toggle actions for now and see if that's just interfering with it.
Yeah, I've still got so much fiddling around and learning to do with toggle actions and ScrollTrigger.
Seem to be the eye, and I'll just add a delay based on the eye to make sure it's class list back there. Oh, because it's not class list dot contains, is it? It's class list functions there. This dot has, is that right? No, it is contained. Weird. So yeah, the delay's not working there, even if I just force it. Got the toggle actions commented out. Okay, remove play as the
Double dash dash. How do you pronounce that? Dash dash dash.
Who's
Double
dashing?
dash, yeah. We're doing CSS variables for you, David.
I greatly appreciate it. I have a soft spot in my heart for CSS variables.
It's so good because you can then just use that everywhere, wherever, and it kind of cascades, which is the best.
Yeah, super nice.
Oh no, wait, we don't want we want dash offset to be a variable. Silly.
Dash. So let's look at what got offset.
That'll work.
I had a nice clip path animation because I felt like it.
Oh, nice.
Do the banner
For the
there.
image on the top.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. How did you do that with just CSS clip path?
Yeah, I stuck to what I know.
I really like that Clippy editor.
Oh yeah. With these rectangular clips, I think it's almost muscle memory for me and Shaw to just do that. But otherwise, we do spend a fair amount of time in that clip path editor. Really, really useful.
Yes. Yeah, when we're doing anything more advanced.
Yeah. than a simple rectangle. Yeah.
Every time wrong. That should.
Oh, cool.
I spelled dash offset wrong.
Looks correct. What's the intended effect there? To get like that. Oh, it is happening. It's just very quick. Let's say duration.
Oh yeah, because we haven't added a scroll trigger to it. Duh.
Yeah. So yes,
I was just going to tell you about that.
I haven't eaten. I'm tired.
There we go. That's working.
Awesome. I'm going to add the same scroll trigger to that as we've got on the mask stroke. I'm just going to copy paste it. So simple. My typing abilities just go out the window as soon as I'm like live coding. Just suddenly can't spell anything.
Yes.
Can't remember what anything is.
It's a real thing.
Same.
So as soon as you've got scrub enabled, obviously you don't need duration anymore because it's tied to the scroll.
Oh, nice.
Just those out.
Yeah, that's such a cool effect, man. Yeah.
Hey, look how cool that is.
That's really awesome.
So this is another thing to kind of, I mean, I guess this is showing off a few things. It's showing off the fact that GreenSock can animate CSS variables, which is super cool because if you wanted to animate a CSS variable and then use that variable in loads of different places, it would kind of cascade all over the site, which is great and potentially very dangerous.
Yeah.
if you
well,
overuse it.
Doing that kind of approach is not going to be as performant as a regular GSAP animation. I would assume because of the cascade
maybe.
and because like where the CSS variables can be used and how the browser has to recalculate that.
Yeah. But
it is a great way to integrate GSAP with your animations.
But also, I mean, this is also showing off like the fact that we are using Draw SVG here, which makes things like really, really super easy for you to do stroke animations, and it gives you all of these different kind of ways that you can set it up. Like we did the animating a tiny part of it along the path, but you know, you don't need Draw SVG to animate SVG paths, you can like directly target the attributes. It'll just be a lot harder work if you want to do anything super fancy with it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, just the fact that, you know, the ability to animate whatever attributes, whatever numbers you want is always there for you.
Yes. Man, that really came together.
It looks really good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We smashed it.
Yeah.
Great work, everyone. Teamwork. Got it. So yeah, that's about the whole animation. You know, there's plenty of other little touches that happen. There's footer and all that kind of fun stuff happening in there. But for the core effect here, we essentially have, let's see, 2, 3 main animations that are all happening with GSAP, and a few extra little touches that David's added in the CSS as well. So the first one here, let's see, we've got our mask stroke, and this is what's actually drawing the stroke in the background. So as we scroll, you can see the stroke kind of coming along with us. Just kind of trying to summarize since we've bounced around so many times. So this mask stroke is just a path that's kind of using mask on the real visible path that's rendered down here, so that it draws it in place. Typically, with like a line drawing technique, you're just going to animate like the stroke dash array or use draw SVG in this same kind of way. But since this is a dashed path, we kind of need to add this extra mask layer on top of it to make sure that it draws it correctly. And we've got that triggering with ScrollTrigger. So it's tied to the page element. That's the kind of container there. And it's starting a little bit earlier than the top. We've got that -5%, so you can see the path is already a little bit visible. You can change that a little bit too to get more of the path visible. There. And then as we scroll, it continues drawing all the way to when we reach the bottom of that page element, with a little extra addition in there to keep it scrolling, so that the line completes itself there. And that is super cool. And we have the stroke itself animating. So this is the path that's getting masked to be drawn in. And Cassie set up the stroke dash offset with the CSS variable, just to show off how CSS variables can be used with GSAP and animated in that way. We could target that property directly, but here it works really great. And what that does is kind of gives that marching ants effect, you know, like when you're using a selector in a photo app, to just give a little extra movement as you scroll, and that's super cool. Turned out really nice with the same kind of triggers there. That's really awesome. For all the like text animations, we have this revealer and revealer inner wrapper that David set up, and all that's happening with that revealer has overflow hidden on it, and that's really the important bit. And then the inside bit, revealer inner, we're animating each of those. So this is a GSAP util to array. That's basically an internal util, I would imagine.
Yeah, I really like there's quite a lot of utils that I've been kind of leaning into them quite a lot for creative coding stuff recently, because they've got lots of like maths things.
Yes.
To do quite a lot of heavy lifting for you.
But this basically does document.querySelector and turns it into an array so that you can use true array functions on it, like for each or map or whatever. So we've got each of those inner elements being targeted, and then we're pushing that down Y% 120, so that it's outside of the overflow hidden container. And whenever it's in the viewport, in the top of it is in the center of the viewport, triggers that animation. Thanks, David, for updating those captions for us.
I had to, yeah.
And yeah, That's just so cool. And thanks for getting those toggle actions in place properly. And then the images, it's basically the same sort of thing, but we're targeting them with a different class. Actually, we could have done the same class and just targeted image dot reveal image or whatever, but this is a little bit easier. And so we're doing opacity for those, as well as like a bit of a scale animation happening there. So yeah, this is a great example of ScrollTrigger, how we can get it to integrate in a page like this to add just a little bit of dynamics on a page as you scroll. Typically, you don't want that to be too heavy. Like you don't want to animate too many things like tied directly to the scroll, or like too many things animating in and out as you're scrolling, because that can be pretty distracting. But something like this, where it just kind of gives a little oomph to the elements as they come into the viewport. I think that's a really great approach.
Yeah, and I mean, as always, prefers reduced motion is there. You use it.
Yes. Right. Match media is your friend for scroll animations, targeting them to get values right for smaller screens, or to disable for prefers reduced motion. I think we've done that in one of our videos. Definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I wonder if GSAP has any utilities for that too. That would be really useful.
Yeah, it's a thing that I would really love the ability to say, like, if the user has prefers reduced motion set, either like play this animation, or like, you know, maybe scroll this animation to the end and stop it, or play this on faster. Because I think that's the thing with prefers reduced motion. It is reduced motion, that is the thing. And I have in so many sites, because I've run out of time, just been like, if the user has prefers reduced motion, just like yank all the animations out, no animations for anyone. And actually you can do like opacity fades, and you can do small animations and kind of micro interactions. It's just kind of big swipey things that trigger people usually. So it would be really nice to kind of have some like granularity with that. I usually just tend to like check for prefers reduced motion in JavaScript, and then I'll kind of create different, if I have enough time, create different timelines or tweens depending on whether they've got it toggled or not.
Yeah. Well, this turned out really, really great. Thank you so much, Cassie, for helping with the setup and for walking us through all of this.
No worries. That was super fun. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Before we go, at least one interview question. Well, let's do two.
Interview question.
Yes,
we're hiring.
I'm not looking for work.
Oh, okay.
So you did just start with GSAP. So what is kind of your role now working on GreenSock?
I'm the lead bestower of animation superpowers, which is a totally grown-up real job title.
That's quite the title.
Yeah. I think it's mostly like, it feels like kind of a bit of a dream come true, because I've been doing all of my SVG workshops, and I have like a little creative coding meetup that I run as well. And I've got, you know, my SVG Slack, where I'm always helping people with GreenSock problems. So that was all the stuff I was doing as like a side gig on top of my agency job. So now I'm just doing that. That's what I do. I kind of teach people animation things, help out in the forums, make demos. Going to help with documentation at some point. There's quite a few exciting things coming up, which I'm going to hopefully have some input into. But yeah, it's just very kind of community focused and animation focused, which is 100% my vibe. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
pretty jazzed about it.
Kind of a DevRel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or developer advocate kind of thing.
Vibe.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, any any favorite like web animations or techniques that you've come across recently? Anything that
that's a good one.
you're excited about?
I think I mentioned earlier when David asked about CSS variables. So Michelle Barker, who has the CSS in Real Life blog, and is just generally awesome and makes amazing things. She's just written a really good blog post on Codrops about her website and how she animated this kind of mask using CSS variables and GreenSock. And I think CSS masking, not SVG masking, but she goes into a lot of different types of masking.
Yes.
And it's just a really cool effect, but it's also a really well-written article that everyone should check out.
Yeah, dynamic CSS masks with custom properties in GSAP.
Just drop the link in the chat.
Yeah.
So
awesome. It's a really good one.
So cool.
Yeah, it's a wild demo. It's awesome.
That's really nice. So yeah, you definitely need to check out Michelle Barker's stuff, CSS in Real Life, and that article looks quite amazing. Yeah, so people can find you at Cassie Codes on Twitter. Your website is also cassie.codes. Well, not .com. https://cassie.codes. And yeah, anything else you'd like to promote?
That's it.
That's it.
Really?
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, if you're interested in SVG animation, I have a little Slack channel. It's very like small, friendly little community. So if you would like an invite to that, just hit me up on Twitter and I will give you an invite.
Very cool.
Oh, also, and I have a newsletter. I forget I have a newsletter.
Oh, yes.
I have a newsletter that I do with Louis called Viewbox, and it's all about SVG stuff.
Yes. Where can they find that? Button down?
Viewbox.club.
Viewbox.club. Nice.
These are amazing domain names.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a domain name nerd. I have so many that I don't do anything with.
Box domain name, view.box. You gotta jump on that one if that ever becomes available.
Yeah, it would have been good. I think we were looking for that initially.
That's awesome. So yeah, definitely subscribe to Viewbox and check anything else out that Cassie's got going on. And yeah, you can find GreenSock at just greensock.com and learn more there. The documentation there is very helpful, and will surely get even better with Cassie working on that. So.
Yeah, and watch this space for like loads of exciting GreenSock stuff. I've got lots of ideas, so hopefully there'll be all sorts of things happening soon.
Great. Well, before we go, our show is supported by our sponsors, CodePen at codepin.io, CSS Tricks at css-tricks.com, and viewers like you. You can pledge at patreon.com/keyframers and subscribe to our channel for more great content. We've got plenty of links available below, including Cassie's links there as well. So, all right. Any final words?
That's it.
None for me.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and thank you, Cassie, for coding with us today. Till next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Adios, amigos.
Adios.
Bye.